welcome to the homestead. We're going to have a new project today. I'm always talking to you guys about how you need to homestead head first, and one of the things is cooking. I haven't done a lot of cooking videos. This will be my first one, but we'll see how it goes. I just want to talk to you a little bit about thinking ahead as far as eating on the homestead. We have to eat every day. And, you know, it can be very inconvenient sometimes when you've got a lot of projects on the go. We're looking at an early Saturday morning here, and I have some mulch to put around some of my fruit trees today. I've got more work to do on a project that I'm working on in the barn, and just a lot going on. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use my head, and I'm going to cook a meal that will not only feed us today, but it should feed us a couple other days as well. It's also important to note that if you have a big family, this is a wonderful way to cook. If you have a lot of kids, if you have things going on during the week, like sports or other events that the kids partake in, this is a good thing to do. What I'm going to make today for you guys is my crock pot meatloaf. And you will notice in my pan here, I have my meat to start off with. This is my big stainless steel bowl that I highly recommend everybody have one of. And we're going to start out by showing you the meats that we have. The first meat I have here is just regular ground beef. It's ground chuck. It's fairly lean. Then I have 1 pound of that. Then I have over here, I have 1 pound of ground venison. And that's a venison that we harvested. And then I have 2 pounds of ground pork. Now the first thing I want to say is that your meats in this meatloaf, you've got a wide range. I have used rabbit, I have used lamb, I have used beef, I have used, as I say, venison, I've used goat meat. You can use ground chicken. You can use any kind of meat that you want to make in your meatloaf. However, I would highly recommend that you use some form of pork for at least 1 pound of the 4 pounds. My grandma Nettie taught me that long ago. The pork adds a lot of the moistness to the meatloaf. It helps the meatloaf to hold together better, and it just all around makes a better meatloaf. If you don't have plain ground pork, you can substitute sausage, any kind of sausage you prefer, but just keep in mind if the sausage is already seasoned, to add that into the equation so you don't over season your meatloaf. So anyway, I'm starting with my 4 kinds of meat here, or I should say 3 kinds of meat, but there's 4 pounds of meat, and that's what we're starting off with. The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to put everything in this big bowl, and then we're going to stir it all up at once. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start adding the seasonings to this meat. And like I said, this is going to be about a 5 pound meatloaf when we get done. And it will actually be a couple of meatloafs. It won't just be one big meatloaf. First thing I'm going to add into this is some of my Vidalia onion that I have dehydrated previously. I'm going to put about half a cup or so in there. You can put however much you want, really. So it's going to get a little bit extra, half a cup. Alright, 3/4 of a cup. Because I like a lot of onion in my meatloaf. I'm going to put that in. Any kind of dried onion flakes will work. If you want to use fresh onion, that will also work. But it might make your meatloaf a little bit more moist, and so it might make it tend to want to fall apart. You may have to add more of the filler to help the meatloaf to hold together better. So that's why I like to use a lot of the dehydrated things in my meatloaf. The next thing we're going to do in the meatloaf is I'm going to put some dehydrated celery. And one of the things I do with my meatloaf is I use it as an opportunity to pack as much vegetables and punch into this as possible. I'm putting a heaping tablespoon of celery, dried celery, in here, and that will just really help my meatloaf flavor. Plus, celery's got a lot of good things in it. If you do, again, you can use fresh celery if you don't have dehydrated. The next thing I'm going to put in my meatloaf is dehydrated mushrooms. I get my mushrooms when they're on sale, and dehydrate them up, so I've got them handy. And we're going to put half a cup of dehydrated mushrooms in it. Again, you could put a package or 2 packages of mushrooms in this. Now those items you'll be able to see in the meatloaf to a degree. You know, you'll be able to pick up the taste of the mushroom and the celery and the onion, obviously. We're going to add one more flavor to our, and that is I'm going to add some granulated garlic. Again, fresh as always possible. And I'm adding a lot. I'm adding about probably 2 teaspoons, I should say, granulated garlic. We like garlic. Now, we're going to add some hidden ingredients. Things that nobody will know is there, but it's going to add nutrition to my meatloaf. In this jar, I have dehydrated carrots, and they've been grated, and that is a lot of carrots. 1/2 cup of dehydrated carrots is probably about a pound of carrots, seriously. And I'm going to put them in there, and they will just disappear. You won't even see them. You won't know they're there. But they're going to add fiber and vitamins to my meatloaf. The next thing I'm going to put in is some sweet potato, dehydrated. This is why I like to dehydrate a lot of vegetables, because I can really pack up a food like this. I've got about a 1/4 cup of the sweet potato. Not a lot, but enough to add a lot of vitamin A and protein. The next thing I'm going to add to this meatloaf is dehydrated spinach flakes. Now, technically, you could eat this meatloaf, and I mean it's already a complete meal. So I've got about a 1/4 cup of dehydrated spinach flakes. What that will appear to be in the finished meatloaf is little tiny green flecks, little seasoning pack bumps. Nobody will know it's spinach. Then I'm going to put some dehydrated kale. And again, it packs a lot of wallop, so I'm going to put about 1/4 cup dehydrated kale in there. Now, you can already tell all of the vitamins and minerals I've added to this basic meat. So that's a good thing. Now we're going to start adding a little wet ingredients. And what I've got here is I have some jars of what I've got labeled juicy tomatoes. And I'm going to drain these jars. And they're about a cup of tomato after you get the juice squeezed out of them. I'm going to put both of those in there, and I'm retaining the juice for later. Okay. Okay, that's the juice that we got off of those 2 pints of tomatoes. Okay. The next thing we're going to put in is we're going to put in 2 eggs. Remember, this is like a double recipe, so I'm going to put in 2 of my big farm fresh eggs. Any kind of eggs will work, folks. Those are big chicken eggs, but if you have turkey eggs, duck eggs, quail eggs, doesn't make a difference. The eggs just bind the ingredients. Now it's time to do some seasoning. We're going to add a little bit of some seasonings to this. Today I'm going to add some ground cumin, and I'm just going to put it in my hand here, and I'm going to do about 2 teaspoons of cumin. Okay. I'm going to add some ground turmeric, because turmeric is a really good anti-inflammatory, and again, I like to hide it in a lot of things. I'm going to add about 1.5 teaspoons, 2 teaspoons of turmeric. got a little fennel seed here. I'm just going to put about a teaspoon of those in there just to give them a little extra boost of flavor. And I'm looking up here at my spice jar to see what else I want to add. I think I'm going to add a little lemon balm today, just for fun. Nobody will know the difference, and it adds a little bit of antiviral qualities. Throw a little of that in there. You can put some oregano in there. You can pretty much spice this up any way you want. Anyway, I've got some spices in there now, and I'm going to put some pepper in there. And keep in mind, we've got a big thing here of meatloaf. So I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons full of pepper. Coarse ground black pepper. Lots. Okay. Next, I'm going to add some salt. I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons full of salt. Okay. And today I'm using an iodized salt. You can use any kind of salt you want to use for any purpose. 2 of us here have thyroid problems, and iodine is important for thyroid function. So that's something that you don't get to hear a lot about usually. Also, everybody in my family, I've got 3 people in this family that are celiac, which means that we cannot process gluten, so we have to do everything gluten-free. We're going to put in some tamari, which is a gluten-free soy sauce. It's made with 100% soy. I'm just putting it in there. It's completely optional. You know, I'm just sprinkling some in there to give a little bit of added flavor. Just add a little bit. Okay. Now we're down to the point where we're ready for our binder. Again, binder is a choice of your option. You can use lots of things for binder. You can use leftover rice. You can use breadcrumbs. In this big of a container, I'd probably use maybe 4 slices of bread worth of breadcrumbs. Whatever kind of bread you want to use. Like I said, you could use 2 or 3 cups of stale rice. You could use, you know, a lot of different options. Since everybody in our family is gluten-free, or I should say 3 of us are, we're going to use rolled oats. They have to say gluten-free on the title. Oats are naturally gluten-free. Here's the thing that nobody seems to be able to understand. The problem is cross-contamination. Oats are often harvested with the same combine equipment that is used when they harvest wheat or barley or other grains. Oats are often stored in the same silos where they have wheat or barley or other grains. You can have cross-contamination if you do not have gluten-free oats. They have been specifically, from start to finish, kept separated from other grains. Everything's been cleaned between them, and that's to make sure that there's no cross-contamination of gluten from another item. In our family, it's very important. My daughter has celiac. She's also what's considered wheat allergic, so she goes into anaphylactic shock if she gets wheat in her diet. We have to be very, very, very cautious not to put wheat or cross-contaminate with wheat in any way. So that's why I try to cook really clean as far as that's concerned. I'm going to put 2 cups of the gluten-free oats in. On second thought, I'm going to put 3 cups of gluten-free oats. Okay? And that ought to fill it out pretty good. Now, we should have everything in the pot that I need in the pot to make my meatloaves. And that is quite a variety of vegetables. We've got vegetables, we've got spices, we've got meats, quite a variety. This is really a very, very healthy meatloaf. And then with my clean hands, I'm just going to dig in there and we're going to mush this all together and put it together as a big gloppy mess. Since I'm using oats, or if you're using leftover rice, you will find that your meatloaf will form together a little bit better if you let it sit for a while. because the leftover rice or the oats or even the breadcrumbs will soak up some of the moisture in the loaf. You can tell this is a huge amount of food. Okay? I mean, this would work for lots of people. It's like 4 pounds of meat plus another pound of goodies and eggs. And if you're looking at the average person needs 4 ounces. Okay? This would probably feed, each pound would feed 4 people. So 20 people would eat this. 20 servings. That's a lot. And you see, it hasn't taken me very long to incorporate everything, and I've stirred really, really well. Squeeze it through my fingers. Really mix it. I want all the meats mixed and blended. And I want all of those vegetables and spices I added blended. And you can see now how it's kind of holding together. Okay? I'm going to just let it sit for a second, and we'll get ready to the next part. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our crock pot ready. And I have one of the large size smart pots here. And we're going to start putting our meat mixture in. And I'm just kind of blob it in there for now. Get it all into the pot. As you can see, we've got a lot of meat in this pot. And we want the meat to be able to cook well. So what we're going to do, first I'm going to press it down in the pot. Okay. And then I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to just run right down the center of this crock pot. Okay. And I've got it divided into 2 portions. And this will be large meatloaves. 2 large meatloaves. Okay? But that's how we're going to cook it. That's not how we're going to necessarily have to serve it. Okay? Because when I serve my meatloaf, I usually take it out of the pan, slice it before I put it on plates. And it just makes it a lot easier for everybody. Okay? I've got a nice seam right down the center of the crock pot. Hope you can see that well. See if I can tip it up a little maybe. So you can see how it's divided right down the center. What that's going to do is that's going to allow my meat to cook more evenly. Like I said, there's a lot of meat in this pot. And I'm just trying to make it easy and I'm trying to make it work well for me. The next thing we're going to do is I've got a pint of what I have here labeled red sauce, which is marinara, my basic marinara sauce. And it says thick. Okay, I chose this one because I've still got all this juice. I have all the juice from my drained tomatoes right down here, and this is what my thick sauce looks like. And I'm going to add my thick sauce to the juice I drained. So now we have tomatoes inside the meatloaf, and we have this mixture here. You can see about the consistency. It's pretty runny, pretty watery, but yet there's tomato consistency in it. See if you can see that real well. Okay. And what we're going to do is this is our cooking liquid. Okay. And we are going to take this sauce and basically just dump it in. Okay. I might take my spoon and kind of ensure it's over the top of this a little bit. But mainly it's going to go down in that crack that we made and kind of up over the top. And that will get our meatloaf cooking good. And then it couldn't be easier. Put on the lid, plug in the pot, And we're going to set this on low. If you want to, you can set it on high. You could set it on high, would be about 2 or 3 hours, something like that, maybe 4 hours. You always want to check the internal temperature of your meat before you think you're done. Make sure it reaches at least 165 degrees so that you know that that pork is sufficiently cooked that's in there. But we're just going to let that cook. And the best thing about this is it can sit here on my counter. I took how many minutes this morning to get everything assembled. And this can sit on my counter and do its thing. And I can fix this up, you know, while I'm in the process of fixing breakfast if I want to, and just let it go. And this is going to feed my family today, and this will feed my family for several meals. Like I said, if it makes 20 servings and we have typically 3 of us eating, you know, that's like 6 meals that I just made in that crock pot. And I'll have to show you how we handle it when we get done. But for right now, we just let that baby get there and cook, and I'm going to go out and mulch some trees. Okay, our crock pot's been simmering away here. We're going to check it. I'll take off the lid. And I got my little spatula here, and I'm just going to go along the outside edge and loosen the meat from the outside edge. That allows the tomato juice that's in there to kind of flow around the whole meatloaf a little bit better. Kind of go down the center again. You can see it's already starting to firm up and cook. Okay, so I started this about 8:30 this morning, and it's about 1:30 this afternoon. So it's been on low the whole time. Like I said, you could maybe cook it a little bit faster if you put it on high. And we're going to check the internal temperature. And I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it says it's 170, so that means our pork is done. And it's time to serve. So I'm going to turn this pot on, keep warm at this point, and I'm going to get ready to dish some of it up. So we can have a little bit of an early lunch today. And I'm just going to cut it like this, and just take out some slices. As you see, it's holding together pretty good. I'm just putting the slices up here on my... Got some pretty big portions here. We can cut those again. Make smaller portions. And that should be enough for our lunchtime meal. I want to put a little bit of the tomato topping on it. And that's what we're looking like. And the rest of this, I'm just going to leave right here in the pot on keep warm. Might divide this portion in half. I've got 3 big chunks left, and I'm going to leave that in the pot on keep warm. And we'll come back and deal with that after supper. Okay, now we're ready to continue on with this project. We've had dinner, and we've got everything cleaned up from dinner. And I've turned the crock pot off, and I've been letting the meatloaf cool for a little while. And you will find that this is the better part of the idea. So now I did the work one time, and I'm going to end up with basically 4 or more meals when we get done with this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start portioning this out and putting some away. for the next time. I've got the meatloaf left over that I cooked. Like I said, I had about 5 pounds of meatloaf total. I've got 3 more sections in this pot. Pretty big chunks of meatloaf. If you see this right here, that's a pretty nice big hunk of meatloaf. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of those chunks of meatloaf and I'm just going to put it right into a Ziploc bag. So you can see it's still a little on the hot side. And okay, so I've got the first one put in this Ziploc bag. Like I said, it's still a little on the hot side. I'm going to try to wrap it up here. Got my Ziploc bag labeled already with what the contents are. This needs to do a little bit more cooling. But as you see, it says meatloaf, and it's basically it's a whole other dinner right there, ready to go. Then our local pizza restaurant, sometimes we've gotten pizza, we had leftovers or whatever, and my husband tends to get the spaghetti, and they put the leftovers in these little containers. They're real sturdy, nice containers, and they're microwave proof. I'm sure you can buy the same thing, but we have these containers, so I'm using these to pack up some more of this food. So I'm going to slice some slices for meatloaf. And as you can see, this is a lot of meatloaf. So I basically got 2 servings in this one. A couple more generous servings in that one. This juice that I'm putting over there, there's a little bit of grease in that, of course, from the meat, but since I had venison and some pretty lean meat other than pork, it's really not too heavily fatted, but it'll help keep the meatloaf moist. So I'm going to seal them up in these containers. So those are 2 different meals. Some evening when it's just 2 of us, my husband and I, for example. Another one here. Well, it's going to be maybe too full. Okay. Just gonna pour the rest of that juice right on there. Okay. And these little trays, right on it. Okay, and they've got little vent holes in them, and the easy solution to that is I just take a little piece of tape and cover up those vent holes so when they're in the freezer they will freeze nicely. And so I hope you can see that this one-time cooking, I now have basically 4 meals worth of food. I'm going to let it continue to cool down just a little bit in the refrigerator, and then I'm going to put these all in the deep freeze and they will be ready for another day. So basically for the maybe 15 minutes of work combining the meatloaf this morning, I have a very nutritious dinner today, and I've got 4 more dinners. Cooking it in the crock pot the way I did required very little attention or effort. By adding the extra vegetables and things to it, I've got more nutrition in it than you would a normal meatloaf, so even just a simple meatloaf sandwich is a full course meal. And it just makes things really easy for the homesteader, and for that matter, for any busy parent. I like to use my head and do it ahead of time and make as much use of my time as possible. And I hope that just because you saw me putting a lot of the dehydrated vegetables and things in this meatloaf, keep in mind you can, keep the options open. The main thing is to understand that you can hide a lot of vegetables and a lot of food inside of meatloaf, and it'll turn out really good, and people will gobble it down and just think they're eating meat, and they're eating, like I said, a very rounded meal. Because remember, this meatloaf has kale and everything else in it, and lots of vegetables and lots of nutrients. But hope this helps. Thanks for watching.